That's President Joe Biden stumbling 3 times on the stairs getting into Air Force One. Here's another view of the same thing, more dramatic. The reason we show you those is not to be unfair, though it was certainly fair in the eyes of the media party. Anytime Donald Trump stumbled or made a wrong step, he was actually quite sure-footed. I remember in one moment, he stood and shook hands with American military graduates for well over an hour in the hot sun. He was known for giving press conferences well over an hour. The guy had stamina, even though he wasn't in the greatest of shape. But Joe Biden, maybe anyone would have stumbled on those airplane stairs. But coming as Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea all snub the United States, it just projects weakness. As you may know, Vladimir Putin challenged Joe Biden to an online summit, but only if it was live streaming. Why would he do that? Well, to show that Joe Biden doesn't just stumble physically, he stumbles mentally. I do believe that American prestige is receding, and loved or hated, Trump commanded respect. That's gone now. Joining us now via Skype from the United States is our friend Ben Weingarten. He joined us on the American election night, you'll recall. He also writes for The Federalist, Newsweek, and for our friends at Epoch Times. Ben, great to see you again. I don't want to be unfair. Anyone can slip on stairs. You and I do. People of all ages do. But it just fits with the theme of a stumbling, doddering old man who's not strong.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a metaphor for what we've seen, and I think you correctly identified, which is that all of America's worst adversaries are essentially taking us on, at least rhetorically, with what would be reckless abandon in the face of another administration, but which in the case of this one seems to invite it. As you noted, the Iranian regime sees the Biden administration offering to come to the table without preconditions to work on a respun Iran deal, with these Chinese counterparts at this debacle in Anchorage, Alaska, attacking America for purported human rights violations and invoking Black Lives Matter and a history of human rights violations on the American side. When it comes to Russia, as you noted, with Vladimir Putin firing back, demanding a debate, calling the president essentially a killer as well. And North Korea, of course, threatening potentially something far more nefarious and worse, and maybe even in the form of a nuclear attack or some other kind of military strike. Put all of this together, and it demonstrates by these responses a lack of respect or fear for the Biden administration. And incidentally, just in terms of the sort of mental acuity questions and then also physical questions, look, why is it that Vice President Kamala Harris is the one taking calls from the top leaders in other countries, principals in other countries, presidents, prime ministers, and the like? That's something that's very uncharacteristic of any administration that I can think of. And it speaks to the fact that there are legitimate questions about the fitness of the president generally, but then also, even if he is fit to be commander-in-chief, whether or not his policies are befitting of a commander-in-chief.
Yeah. You know what? There was a video, we played a clip of it the other day. I'll just show it again. Biden was in an interview with a mainstream media outlet. It's not even important which one. He was asked a question and he gave a sort of answer. And he was the only one in the shot. But his answer wasn't great. And then, surprise, the angle was widened and Joe Biden's wife was there. And she patched up Biden's answer. You wouldn't have known she was in the room. She was like a nanny for him, and she weighed in on policy matters. It wasn't a personal interview. What are the two of you like at home? What's your family? Then you don't understand the First Lady being in the interview, but it was like she was his minder. Here's a quick recap of that.
Mr. President, in the 5 weeks you've been in office, you have been taking many actions to revert Trump administration's anti-immigration policy. But today, the Washington Post reports that your administration has plans to open tents at Del Rio, a town close to the border. Can you confirm that?
Right now, there's thousands of unaccompanied children coming across the border. In Texas, they opened up one that was a former one used in the administration, in the last administration. Our hope and expectation is that won't stay open very long, that we'll be able to provide for every kid who comes across the border safely to be housed in a facility that's licensed.
And this administration is doing it in a humane way. And that's really important. I mean, we want to make sure that these children are safe, that they get mental health services, they get physical health services, they get education.
I just think that substantive weakness is being matched with personal weakness. And I think that's the worst of all worlds for America. Enemies are thrilled, friends are demoralized, the world gets worse. I don't know, that's how it feels from up here.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And on one level, it's incredibly disconcerting that the commander-in-chief apparently seems to show these signs of needing assistance, won't take a press conference, won't take any questions from the press, and then you add the policies to it and it's just cataclysmic. On the other hand, I have long felt that the president was essentially a figurehead. He was a figurehead candidate and not really the one running the show. That perception seems to be meeting reality right now. And maybe the even more disconcerting thing is, what if the reality is that this administration is really being run by the underlings in the administrative state, the deep state, if you want to call it that, and beyond. I mean, remember, Susan Rice is the one in charge of the domestic policy portfolio. Secretary Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan were longtime senior Obama administration officials. Obviously, Kamala Harris is in a position of power, perhaps the likes of which we've never seen as a vice president. So put all that together. And the thing that's maybe even more disturbing is that it really is sort of the machine running the show, the ruling class running the show. And Joe Biden is there as sort of a purported, at least superficially moderate frontman, but in reality overseeing the most radical administration arguably in American history. And I think that's borne out by the fact that you've seen wokeism essentially implemented throughout the executive branch. You see the filibuster under assault, massive expansion of the courts potentially to come. Obviously, an open borders policy, and the president's response is to tell migrants, illegal aliens, please don't come over the border. You shouldn't be coming, and on and on. Obviously, the environmentalist policies, and then, of course, instituting a policy of equity over equality, which really speaks to a sort of critical race theory, identitarian, cultural Marxism infused sort of policy, and all of which, again, is a disaster for the country.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.